Okay, let's see how this goes. Yeah, give it a few moments to actually start the stream. Take a sip of coffee, get my brain cells all primed. And it looks like I am actually streaming, which is cool. Let me go ahead and send out a tweet. I think the tweet has enough exclamation points in it. And okay. All right. Well, that should be that. Um, cool. Okay, so let's just kick this off like I normally do. So, hi, I'm Joshua. Um, Today is October 29th, 2016. Today I'm working on my video game, Delver, which you can see the homepage, I guess, right there in front of you. Delver is a procedural fantasy dungeon crawly roguelike game. And I guess the shtick is it's kind of a first person roguelike. I guess it was a little bit more novel, like 3, 4 years ago when we started on it. Now there are quite a few other roguelike first person games, but I love them and I'm glad this is a thing that people are making. Like I said, this is it's a passion project. There are two of us working on this. We were working on it. I've been on the project 3 years now, and Chad has been working on it maybe a year longer than I. So I do, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Joshua, and I'm the art guy. I guess it's my official title. Because we're a two-man studio team, whatever, duo. So I do all the art. I do all the 2D, 3D visual stuff. So anything you see in the game, I'm ultimately responsible for. Then Chad handles all of the programming and a lot of the game design and the business and all the other stuff. Okay, cool. So um, I think I'm just going to. Looks like there aren't many folks in chat yet, so and by that I mean zero. So I'm just gonna start working, and I guess as if people start filing in, I'll actually preview stuff. I'll at least preview stuff before I stop streaming, so the folks who are watching the archive of this can actually see what I'm talking about. Um, so let's see. The status is I've been working on this archery branch for about 2 weeks now. I've got the archery branch in good shape. I have it. I merged our main branch back into it, and it's ready to be merged into the main branch. But I need to since I normally don't touch code. I am a software engineer by trade, but I enjoy doing art. But since I haven't touched code in a while, I've submitted a pull request for Chad to review and make sure that um, there aren't any things that I am egregiously messing up. For those of you who work with managed languages, you know that there are some gotchas, and I've tried to be mindful of them, but since Chad is way more familiar with his code base, I'd rather him take a look and make sure that I haven't messed anything up. Functionally, everything works great. I guess I'll preview real quick since I'm talking about the changes I've made. Um, okay, so this is the game. I'm just going to create a new save slot just so I make sure I don't have any stale item data. Because actually in the save slot we serialize a lot of stuff. So if I'm tweaking like stat values for weapons, any weapons that have already been created, we don't retroactively update. This is partially for backwards compatibility. So let's go ahead and give myself, how about all the bows, so I can uh, kind of talk about them. because somebody on the I forget the username, but a user on the Steam forums commented, um, "Why do you have 5 bows?" And I guess the true answer is it is straight up just an arbitrary number I chose. Um, because if you look at the number of melee weapons that Delver has, it has 9 swords and 9 mace/hammers, which is 18 total melee weapons, which is a lot. And I guess the player, his point is that um, with the bows there are a limited number of stats that you are um, actually changing. And maybe I think his misunderstanding was that he didn't realize how many stats I'm actually kind of playing around with here. Give yourself some arrows so it actually works. So for the bows, for the new bows, you still have the damage they do. So the short bow does 1 to 3 damage, but now they have a range stat, um, and the range stat determines how far they shoot. But also underneath the hood there is a speed stat, which affects draw speed. With the bow, how it works is if you the longer you hold down, the farther it shoots. So it's basically like drawing back the bow. So if you tap it, the arrow goes really short. If you hold it down, it goes really far. And there is a max um, there is a max draw to each bow, and each bow is faster or slower to draw. So a short bow is pretty quick to draw back, but it doesn't do a lot of damage. So I thought that was a good fit for this. A lot of our I think people kind of misunderstand how our light weapons work. Is I don't like the weapons scale where the dagger is like worthless and the short sword is a little bit better. And basically, it's just once you hit the ultimate sword, there's no reason to use any of the previous swords. So I'm trying to balance it out where um, the better swords do more damage, but they're way slower. So I've seen several folks on the forums comment that they don't like using those because they're too slow and they'd rather use something fast, which I think is a good sign. So with the short bow, you can really kind of crank out arrows, but you're not doing a lot of damage. And then the next one is what I call the composite bow. The composite bow is a real thing. It's a bow that's made of multiple materials, which actually gives it way more strength than if it was wood alone. So how this works is it actually does the composite bow does more damage than the next bow up, but it has a much shorter range. It actually has the same range as the short bow, and it has a slower draw speed, but it does significantly more damage. But I guess the claim to fame of the composite bow is that it has the highest knockback of any bow. Like it has like a knockback almost comparable to that of a mace. Not quite, but similar. Yes. Oh my goodness! So this is very fortuitous. So I can talk about this in a little bit, but you can see with by the blue text that this is a special or magical item, however you want to picture that. I think in the code we call it enchanted. Neither here nor there. So yeah, so the composite bow, range same as a short bow, does more damage than the bow above it, has a slow draw speed, but has the highest knockback of any bow weapon, which I think makes it useful. Again, like I like knockback weapons because they allow you to position enemies. And a lot of times, for me, that's just dumping them into a trap or into a bottomless pit or somewhere that I know that they will just die. And I think that's handy to have that stat in a weapon. And then 3 is the bow. It has kind of just the most. It is like the most vanilla of the ranged weapons. It has okay draw speed. It has okay damage. It has decent range. There's nothing wrong with it, but again, it's kind of the midpoint where I kind of scaled everything off of, if that makes sense. The next one up from that is what I call the hunter's bow. So the hunter's bow really isn't a type of bow. I'm thinking of the bows instead of actual like one-to-one corresponding types of bows. I'm abstracting it away to they are bows and types of arrows. So I imagine that a hunter's bow, because it's not designed to take down armed opponents, it's designed to take down animals that Um, it does less damage, um, or it potentially can do less damage than the bow. So the range is roughly the same as the one below it, or the damage range is the same as the one below it, but it has an extended range. And it has a decently quick draw speed. It's not super fast, but it is. I think it's a good balance of damage and range. Um, and then finally, you have the longbow, which is modeled after the English longbow, which is a real thing. Unfortunately, in Delver, like we don't have a lot of pixel space to work with, so all the bows are roughly the same size. I mean, the longbow is taking up as much space as it can, and the short bow is probably the smallest, but the sizes aren't super big. But again, so the longbow does the most damage, and it has the best range, but it also is a bear to draw back. It takes a very long time to actually get the full draw on it. So I mean, it depends. Like if you want to snipe people and make sure they go down, this is the bow you want to use, but it does take some time to use. Um, yep. So that's the general bow improvements. I guess I'll talk about since I was lucky enough to find that enchanted bow. Um, that enchanted bows now honor the actual enchantment placed on them. So when I shoot it, you see that it has a magical particle effect. Has a particle effect that matches the magical effect associated with it. It also does that specific type of damage. Um, what else? I guess also you can use them as lights. So that they do emit a little bit of light. So I guess in a pinch you could just stick them into walls. They don't go very long, but it is something that you could consider. Um, yeah, I'm happy that works. As you've noticed, the arrows do stick into walls, which is an improvement. They used to just bounce around like crazy and occasionally kill you. So now you can still make a bounce, but you actually have to hit the wall at a pretty steep angle to actually make that happen. Okay. What else? I think that is I guess the last thing, which is kind of a big thing. It might not belong in the actual archery changes, um, but my problem with testing these changes is that the bow drops are very rare actually. Um, Originally, you had like a 20% chance to get a piece of armor, a 20% chance to get a wand, a 20% chance to get a piece of food, and then you had like a 14% chance to get a melee weapon and a 6% chance to get an actual ranged weapon. And for those of you who want to play as like a ranged character, this is like basically it makes it almost impossible to do because it means you get very few bow drops, and you also get very few arrow drops. So it just doesn't make it really all that feasible to play as a ranged character. So what I've done is I have tweaked the class that handles the item drops, and so Chad might be learning about this for the first time watching the stream. But so the item manager that handles the loot drops now takes into account the character's stats. So if you put more stat points into agility, you're more likely to get ranged drops. If you put more stats into defense, you're more likely to get armor drops, etc. Which may or may not make it in. It's kind of an experimental thing. I wanted to hear what you folks think about that sort of system. I'm of two minds of it. Primarily, I wanted to do it so that um, everything is kind of at an even footing. So like it's grouped into like melee, magic, and under magic you have both wands and scrolls, ranged, armor, uh, potions, and food, and all those have at the beginning the same percent to drop because your stats are all the same across the board. And then as you add points, the next drops you get are weighted accordingly. And so I'm worried. So like basically, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm worried, but like if you dump a lot of stats into say agility, pretty soon you're getting a lot of bows and a decent amount of arrows, which is good because I guess it balances out because you're not getting as many armor or health drops. So I guess you have to kind of. So that's the thing is it's kind of a hidden system. So I don't know if people would they might not actually recognize that maybe subconsciously, but not. Um, It's not a very well exposed game system, but I'm not sure. Like ultimately, it doesn't really change the numbers a lot. I've seen it after I've dumped a lot of points into agility. I think it got up to as high as like a 36% chance of getting a bow, and then everything else was around like 15, I forget, which isn't awful. I mean, there's still stuff dropping. I'll talk to over Chad. Hopefully, it makes it in. And I'd love to hear you guys' feedback on that. Let me see. Is there anyone in chat? Yeah, there are a few folks over in chat. So hey, chat folks, thanks for stopping by. I am talking about the video game I'm working on called Delver, and I'm just kind of previewing upcoming features that should. We are pushing to release the next update to Delver in November. As always, things go slower than anticipated. I know Chad has been swamped at work, and as always, I am a stay-at-home father, so my time kind of wildly varies, like day to day, how much time I actually have to work on this. So what you're watching now is a bonus stream. So it just so happens that my son and wife are out to I guess brunch with some friends. So I had, I don't know, maybe an hour to stream. So I figured, why not? Let's get on this and do a little bit of work and talk about the game. And I think that's where we're at. So I can even play a little bit. Like I'm sort of, I guess I'm also sort of worried because right now I think the bows are a little overpowered, but I'm not sure because I played the other night and actually I cruised through the first, I don't know, a few levels pretty easily.
Hello?
Oh yeah, that's another thing too, is when you shoot enemies, um, you can recover your arrows. Originally, that was not possible. Originally, when you hit something, the arrow was gone forever. And I guess it's still the case that that if you hit breakables, that you still lose the arrow, and maybe that should not be the case. Maybe breakables should also drop. Did I just pick up an item on the other side of the door? Yes, I did. So maybe breakables also should drop the arrows that you put into them. I don't know. Again, it's something that I want to get this in a good solid state, and then I want to listen to people's feedback because these initial setup changes came back from people's feedback complaining that basically the archery was bad, and I had to agree. I grew up. I guess archery was a hobby of mine growing up, and I'm very passionate about it. I really enjoyed it, and I felt we can do better. So I've spent some time improving the archery bits. I guess if you notice the arrow hop there too, sometimes the collision is a little wonky. So after my changes get in, I think Chad is going to go back through and he's going to change how we handle the collision detection, so that the collision is more accurate. Looks like McKelio23 is asking, any news on the Android update? You know, I'm not sure. I haven't spoken to Chad about it recently. I guess we've mostly been focusing on the Steam updates. Yeah, we need, because right now we're trying to do updates more frequently. So roughly every 2 months, if we can. I'm not sure what cadence makes sense for mobile, but that's definitely something that we need to discuss because it has been a very long time since we've actually released an Android build. I guess again, I spoke about this before, but the problem with the Android build is the framework that we use. So we use the libgdx framework, and I believe that we're not on the latest version. For the longest time, we were stuck on a very old version, simply because of Android support. Because I think it was like the OpenGL, I believe, shader support. That the minimum required for our framework, and on the old version, had a very high, I guess, coverage rate of the Android devices out there. And now that we've upgraded, not to the latest, but to a newer version of libgdx, the shader model version is higher, and we're worried that if we do, we just don't want to update the Android version and then make a game unplayable for folks who have paid for it. So it's a really sticky situation. I'm not sure quite how to handle that. I mean, we've been in this place for a while. because to be honest, primarily we're trying to get the game to a done state, and then I think we're going to focus. Um, I know I'd love to have an iOS update, and maybe and most likely the Android version would get loved then. But we're going to have to draw a line in the sand as to are we going to break people's old versions or not. I mean, I prefer not to, but I'm just not sure of a good solution. Um, okay. Also, this update we've been doing some improvements to wands, so we have a rapid fire wand now, which is useful. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's fast. Um, there's a magic trap right there. Oh. And we got a spike trap there. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So I think I've played enough. If folks have any questions, please feel free to ask. And any sort of questions are fine about the game, about game development, about art. Since I primarily do art, feel free to fire questions off in the chat. Otherwise, I will work. So I guess right before I started the stream, I was curious because the bow animation could be improved. So let me see how that is hooked up. Generally, if you notice, like for like melee weapons, like this hammer, actually you define different animations. So an attack animation, a strong animation, and a charge animation. And for the folks who are modders, how this works is the charge animation is the animation that plays as the character winds up, and the attack animation is the light animation. So when you wind back a melee weapon, if you release the attack before the halfway point, you will do a light attack, which has a different speed and a different attack reach. And then if you wind up all the way, you do a strong attack, which again has a different animation and a different animation speed and all that stuff. So you can do, so each weapon has basically two different types of attacks you can do. But I'm curious, right now the bows don't define an attack animation, which to me implies that they all use the default one. So I need to take a look in the code to see if that is the case. Yeah, so there is a bow attack and a bow charge animation. So that's kind of what I suspected. So maybe I can make a new animation for this because this is something we really haven't talked or touched on very much, is how to make custom animations. If I recall correctly, in the assets data, there should be an animations.dat file, and sorry, my wife always warns me that when I talk, I say like I think they're called the positives, like and ah, and I'm trying to be better about it. So I apologize. So bow attack and bow charge. So these are the animations, and the animation basically is just a series of well, it's the bow. This is the class is a lerped animation. The main property is an array of frames or an array of transforms. So each transform has a position, an XYZ, and it has a rotation, XYZ, and it has a length of time for that to play. So basically, the first frame. So you have I think every item has a very similar um, held position, and then the first frame will take 1.5 seconds to lerp to that specific or specified rotation and position, which in this case is 0, 0. And then the next one will take, whatever the default time is to go to the next one. So let's see if we can fancy this up a little bit, because if you look at it, the way the bow is being held is not terribly realistic. Let me erase this. Let's start with fresh data. Okay, so let me drop a bow in, and when I equip it, you can see that basically it's still being held in the right hand, which I guess is I guess is fine if you're left-handed. If you're, I believe, um, since I'm right-handed, I hold the bow in my left, and I haven't really spoke to many left-handed archers. So if you guys are a left-handed archer, please let me know if you do a right or left-hand hold. But I think they hold it opposite. And then the draw, again, I think it should be I think it should be more centered to the player's view. I want it to maybe be held in the left hand, and then as they draw, they bring it up. Um, so let's see if we can make that animation. Um, so manually typing in transforms is not a fun way to work. So I have created a Blender file to help me do this, and unfortunately, it's one of those things that I have not yet shared with anyone in the community. It's just something that I have that I use for development, which I probably ought to share at some point in time. Double props, attack markup. Yeah, so this is a Blender file. It is basically it is simulating Delver. So it has a screen capture of the starting area. It has a camera to look out of, and then if you notice, it has a let me see if I can select it. It has a little it has a plane that should closely resemble how things are working in Delver. Um, so let me see. So Makilo says, would it be hard to have a third-person camera? Um, it depends what you mean. So we could have a third-person camera, but there is no player character art. So is it still third person if you there's nobody to look at? So that's an interesting question. Uh, Devil Up Game says, hey, thank you folks for joining and chatting. I'm working on improving the bow animation for Delver. Right now, I am going to do some animation, and for this, actually, I think I've even written a custom script. And doesn't really do. I mean, the only thing this does is it creates a new. Let me run it and I'll show you. So what this does is in the default view, there should be now a misc. So there's a new panel called Delver Tools, which just has some convenient stuff for doing animation work. Basically, it takes all these different buttons across Blender's UI and it crams them in here that I think folks might need. So the set keyframe, delete keyframe, and then kind of to jog through the animation, and then also has the location and rotation of this thing here. So if you want to manually key it in. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm going to change the texture to look like a bow, so we can actually better. Yep, and this is the old item sheet. Okay, that's fine. I can just use the old bow art. That is fine. Okay. Okay, defaults. And I think how I have it set up is again if you look at the coordinate axes, I've tried to set this correctly because I believe Delver uses Y up and positive Z forward. So you might need to swizzle some stuff in the coordinates depending upon how your brain does how your brain thinks, right? Some people are Z up folks, some people are Y up folks. It doesn't matter. You just gotta just make that switch in your brain. So Devil Up Game says, how was software engineering? Yeah, that's an interesting question. So for those of you who know, I guess, still am a software engineer for, I don't know, some odd years. And I worked for Lexmark and for Microsoft, and I really enjoyed it. I just, I worked for big corporate companies, and after 6 years of doing that, like corporate enterprise software, I'm just tired of it. You know, I need a change of pace. So I am currently a stay-at-home father, and I work on Delver in my free time as much as I possibly can. Um, yeah, no, I really enjoy being a software engineer. I also really enjoy art, and I'm trying to figure out like my place, if that makes sense. Quite Z says, "Hey man, how long have you been developing?" So if you're talking about this project and specifically, I have been on the project 3 years now as of this October. Yay! So I've been the official art guy on the project for 3 years, and I believe Chad has been working on the game at least 4 years because he'd worked on the game about a year before he brought me on board. Because for both of us, this started off as a hobby project, and now we are on Steam Early Access, which is if you're interested in supporting us, that's a way you can do it. If you are like philosophically against early access, I totally get it. For us, it's been a weird place to be. Um, I wouldn't change it, but it's been interesting. Um, so yeah, so you can support us there if you want. If not, just simply um, like subscribing and hanging out with me while I work is also a good way to support me. It's you guys motivate me. So right now you can see that this animation here is the is the is the dagger attack, which for a bow is not appropriate. Um, as we scrub through the animation, you can see in the top left that the location and rotation are um, updating, which is cool. So so for the bow, so actually let me just go ahead and uh, jump. So let's play. I don't want to play. I want to jump to the keyframes. So um, let me just delete these keyframes, right? Let's. Oh no! Let me just I guess do it manually. Can I? Do I remember how to delete keyframes manually? um, come on, Joshua. You know how to use Blender. I really have I don't know. I'm not super versed in Blender's animation, so I apologize. This may be a little rough. Um, but I could probably. Uh, I certainly can muddle my way through it. There we go. So looking at which way do I need to zoom? The dope sheet. Okay, so there's a frame at 20, which is that one. So I want to delete that. There is, and unfortunately, I guess the status of my tools is I haven't used them in a while, so they are not in the best of shape. Um, so Norsat int is saying, what do I think about Unity? I love Unity. It is an amazing little, it's an amazing engine. Um, if we were to do it again, we might actually consider using Unity because a lot of the work for you is done, which is nice because um, the hard truth about so the positives and negatives about writing your own um, engine is that it does exactly what we want it to do, and Chad is an expert on the engine, and so any changes he needs to make, he knows exactly how to do it. But the thing is we have to do everything. We don't get anything for free, um, which is okay. I mean, this started off as a hobby project, so we weren't anticipating. Um, you don't anticipate uh, a hobby project having any sort of traction, and we've actually had a decent amount of success, which is entirely to the community and you folks. So I really appreciate that. So Quiet Z said, I did a major in computer science, software engineering. Yes, computer science is my degree. Um, I was going to go for a minor in mathematics, and I'm one class shy of the minor. I just my final couple semesters in at university, I was just so tired, and I was working, basically 35 hours a week, and I didn't have it in me. So Nuclear Bambi is saying, yep, we're writing our own game engine. It's written in Java. It's using the libgdx framework, which is a binding for inputs and OpenGL. Develop Game says, I want to major in CS, maybe minor in chemistry. Yeah, just pursue whatever you're passionate about, because ultimately, like your degree helps you get like maybe the first job or two out of university, but after that, it's your experience and your ability to actually do work. A lot of computer science interviews, a lot of them actually have you just write code, and I've written code. I've been handed a big like stack of paper and told to implement something, and they give me a pencil, which was weird. I've done stuff on whiteboards in a more collaborative fashion, which was cool. But again, it's ultimately um, do you know what you're doing? Can you write software in a way that's easy for other people to understand and to be maintained? And like, are you like a team player? Like, can people get along with you and you're like, you're not a jerk? Um, so what kind of coffee? I am drinking coffee. Um, so I think this, so I'm not particularly, I think this is um, a dark roasted Latin American blend, maybe? I'm not entirely for certain. I think that's what it is. And unfortunately, I drank way too much coffee. Yeah, that's the truth of my situation. So let's look at this. So if it was a bow, and I'm assuming because all the weapon animations are assuming the character is right hand dominant. Sorry guys. Um, so with the bow, you'd actually hold that in your left hand. So it really should be over here somewhere. Maybe center screen. I don't know. Like first person's are weird because you hold the like you're always holding the weapon like up in your eyesight, but that's neither here nor there. So if I put it maybe here and then rotate on the Y, so you can see it like that. And cant it forward. Then I'm just trying to get it into like a good position so you can see like this is a bow that you're holding. And then when you draw it, you should draw it and kind of put it, you know, like if you were to draw a bow, you'd hold it um, so you kind of sight yourself down the arrow, um, which I can actually kind of simulate too by changing the texture to do that. So let's go ahead and I also want this to be kind of showcasing like what item you're holding. So I want to make sure that you get a good look at it too, which this is where realism isn't as much of a factor in the fact that we're just letting you see what weapon you're holding. But we don't want it to be so intrusive that you can't actually see the game you're playing. Um, okay, so let's set a keyframe there. So how do I? Oh yes, this is six. Okay, so I added 6 keyframes for visual rotation and scale. And then let's just jump ahead to frame 20. Why is it? Why is it moving? Oh no! Why did it do that? Um, so I want not only the rotation, but I also want the location rotation scale. So just location rotation. So I. So if I scrub it, there we go. Okay, so that's just a matter of setting the correct keyframes. Um, so Tyson was asking, I thought the animation was done by code, not through Blender. Yes and no. So in the code, the animation is simply a it is so the animation is an object. It's a lerped animation is what we called it. That's the class. And then the main property on this class is an array of transforms. Um, and I guess each of these frames has a position and a rotation and a length of time to lerp that particular frame. So if you want to do this manually, you totally can. Um, but I prefer to use this just visually to get um, the correct data. And I have a little, if you go back to this default view, I have these little set of tools that um, basically you can hit the save JSON thing, it will dump out JSON. Is this starting area created in Blender? No, we have our own editor tool that all the levels and level geometry is created in. So I think maybe on frame 50 is when I actually want it to be up. So let's go ahead and position that correctly. And also let me really quickly re-UV this so it looks like it's a full draw. So that's what it would look like at a full draw. So I want that to look decent and not super goofy. So let's go. Yep, that's what we want to animate. And this should be the final animation. And where should it be? Should be here. Let me actually just clear out the rotation. Because you should be kind of looking down uh, the arrow, which kind of helps sight you. And again, if I have to choose how to err, I'm always going to err on the side of making it like graphically more understandable rather than physically accurate. Dr. Kegel says hi. So hi, Dr. Kegel. So Makilo says I created the starting camp area using the same tool I use for the temples. Yeah, we have a level editor, and you can pick whatever textures you want to paint uh, on the level geometry. There's nothing special about it. I'm trying to keep in mind like where my crosshair is for Blender is also where the crosshair should be for Delver. So I do want the arrow to look like it's appropriately pointing at where the character would be firing. Let me go ahead and just set a keyframe here. And then what this is going to do is it's going to just do the most direct lerp. And also let me um, make sure that here, no, yes, no, oh no. Sometimes I have issues with Blender's. Uh, it's cool that they have these little things you can kind of split off windows, but sometimes I have a hard time making it do what I want. There we go. So we want to look at the graph editor. There we go. So I guess the thing about all of Delver's animations is they're not, the animations are linearly interpolated and there's no sort of like geometric smoothing. So I can just hit A to select everything, hit V to convert the handle type, and I converted it to vector. So everything is a lerped animation and it should show as it would in the Delver engine. And right now, that's not quite how I imagine the bow animation looking. So maybe it should be. I'm trying to think. So it should be. Maybe it should come over to the right and then up. So maybe here around frame 35. It really needs to be. Actually, I think I can do something like I could select these and I can duplicate them and then put them there. Okay, cool. So basically, I basically copied the keyframes and I pasted them at frame 35. And then what I can do now is modify this to be where I want it to be. So ultimately it ends up over there. So if I have it maybe more like that, so it does something like it goes over then up, that might be a little bit better. I'm worried about this, because like I could really put it in the player's face. Like I could have it really close, like close in. Um, I just don't know if that would be good because right now, like you see, even in Blender, we're getting this camera, this frustum clipping, which is not ideal. And I'm not sure even if I don't think Blender and Delver's camera align. Um, but let me just try it. What the heck? Let me just set the keyframe for that. So this goes over, then up. Then actually here, what if I already have this rotate on the one? So I want this to kind of just transition, then up. And maybe it should actually move faster. So maybe you should actually get to that spot faster. We'll see. So let's just try exporting this and see if my Python script from a few years ago still works. Nikilo says, is animating models harder than animating 2D pixels? I don't know. For me, I'm not I don't consider myself to be a very. I can do animation. It's just not my specialty. I'm trying to get better at it, which is why I'm forcing myself to do animation for this particular update. And it's neither here nor there. Both have their pluses and minuses. So cross your fingers and see if this works. Save JSON. Okay, that's good. Let's save it to our desktop. We're going to call this bow attack.json. Export. Yay! I think it worked. Did it work? Okay, there looks to be a JSON file there. Do I thought I had Sublime Text installed? Maybe I do. I do. Okay. And then let's just go ahead and throw this in there and make sure it's what we look like. Oh, yeah, cool. So this is exactly what we need. So this was the charge animation. So let me just verify that this is what I think it is. So I'm just going to copy this, these frames over. So copy that. Go into Delver over here on the bow charge and just paste in on top of that. Save, and let's see if I broke the world. And again, I'm erasing the data just to make sure that I don't have any stale item data. So let's create a bow, and I'm gonna use the longbow simply because it has the slowest draw speed, so we can really kind of see how this is gonna look. Wow, so it looks like the so the frame length is not correct. This should have been drawn a long time ago. No ammo. Okay, so and it's still being held. What's it doing? Yeah, I think it assumes that it starts off at 0, 0, and that's a problem because I have it starting off on the left-hand side. Yeah. Let's just try speeding up the these lengths. So instead of so about 1 and 1.5. I should have known that. Okay, so that should be a much quicker animation. Let's see if that actually looks okay. Let me see. I can't remember if the animation actually gets baked into the object serialization or not. I don't think it does. Let's see. Let's see if it's faster. Slightly. It's still pretty darn slow. Oh yeah, and then it's because so I need to maybe tweak the whole held position because it's still being held in the right hand. I mean, I could flip it? I don't know. So let's just take a look and see what it looks like with a short bow because that has the fastest draw speed. might just, so, okay, so I may have to, instead of trying to do it correctly, um, I might just have to animate it as if the player is holding it in the bow in the right hand. Not a big deal. So let's just go ahead and let's do that. Can, do I have is my undo stack deep enough? No. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to this keyframe and we're going to delete it. Except for my script is broken on that, but we can go to the animation window and we can select this keyframe and we can just delete it. And then we can go over here to this keyframe, and then we can Alt R set the rotation, Alt G set the position. So that is the default, and we're just going to assume that the player character shoots with their offhand, which I guess is a real sort of real thing. So my father is right-handed, but he shoots left-handed. It's called cross-eye dominant. It's a thing, so it's enough for me. It's not, yeah. So let me go ahead and set this keyframe before I forget what I'm doing. And so alternatively, we're going to animate it to the other side and have you look down the arrow that way. So again, let's hop over to frame 50 and let's position it roughly where we think it ought to be. So kind of aiming down there. I think it needs to be a little bit higher than I think it needs to be. I think again, this Blender file is an approximation. It's not a direct one-for-one. So you kind of have to kind of work with you kind of have to just do some trial and error to make it actually work exactly like how you'd like it. Again, I want this to kind of roughly point where the player is shooting. There, cool. Yeah, that seems good enough. Let's just set a keyframe there, and then the animation is going to be strange, but let's just see what it looks like. Let's just export that JSON and drop it in and see if the heights are right, and then we can worry about trying to get a little like making it the frame or it lerping correctly. So let's just re-export the JSON, and then yep. So is this updated, which is cool. So let's copy the frames. Let's go back to here and paste the frames. And then I like to tidy up the tagging because I'm a little OCD. Okay. Cool. So let's erase it and start again. I don't think I need to, but I'm just in the habit of always starting off with fresh data. Ranged. Let's do the bow because again it is the most vanilla, so it has like an average draw time. So yikes, it is not animating at all. What did I do? Length 12. Yikes. How about length 1? So maybe it was animating, but it was just taking really, really long to animate. Let's try that. And again, I guess my export script could use some love because obviously some things are broken. I guess the Blender API must have changed underneath me since I wrote it. And also the timing isn't correct. So it would be ideal to have a one-to-one. Yeah, it's just straight up not doing it. Did I not set the keyframe? Let's go back into Blender. Yeah, that's set. That should be doing its thing. Again, let's try let's just try saving it to something different. Oh, looks like Dr. Hegel said, looks like Looks like there's a double negative on some of those, which in code shouldn't matter, but I'm just curious how the actual serialization is um, handling that, the JSON serialization. I'm not sure if it's doing the right thing or not. So yeah, maybe I can clean that up. So let me repaste that and clean up that length 1.5, and then let's again this. Let's see if that was what was goofing it up. Okay. Okay, range, bow. I guess potentially, if I were ambitious, I could do different draw animations for the bow, because the different types of melee weapons certainly have different animations. So let's see. Moment of truth. Yeah. Oh. uh, not quite right. Um, yeah. Hmm. Okay, so it looks like. Hmm. Might have to play around with some of the. So I think. Oh. Um, so the minus minus should actually be a positive, right? Maybe that's the mistake. Yeah, there we go. So it's just that the position is off. I need to raise the vertical position of the bow up. I think that should it might be okay. And then I'll probably play with how that actually animates. So real quick, let's just go ahead and jump to the last frame, and let's just raise it up higher than we think it needs to. Let's set that keyframe. Let's export that JSON. Export it. Let's go back to Sublime. This is a bow charge. That's the one we want. Let's copy the frames. Let's go back to the source code. Let's paste the frames. Let's tidy up the tabbing. Let's fix the double negative, and let's test it. Okay, ranged bow. There we go. Oh, because I did not fix the length of the animation. Let's try this again. Yeah, that's looking better. Maybe I'm feeling. Maybe I should bring it up and over to the right more. I'm gonna keep filling with that animation until I get it right. Um, so hopefully you folks are fine with that. There might not be much pixel art going on today. It might just be some animation, but there's still pixel art to look at. So hopefully that's okay. Then let me set those keyframes. Let me export the JSON. Fix the timing. Let's launch. copy. Okay. Let's see how that looks. And I broke it because I forgot the double negative, which should be positive. It's looking like I should spend some time on my tools. It's always important to have good tools. And of course, Dr. Kegel caught it before I realized what was happening. He was probably screaming at the screen, "You forgot the double negative." Ooh, I think that's a good height. I like where that's at. So if I can get you guys' opinions, what do you think of it crossing that center view plane like that? Is that okay, or would it be better not to have it do that? Is it better just to abstract it and have it stay on the right side? Because it is kind of obnoxious. Maybe I'll try just flipping it real quick and keeping it on the right side, just for clarity's sake. So let's put it over here. Okay, and then let's rotate it correctly. Okay, let's set that. Let's do all of our fun jazz we do. So Truman 2 says the crossing is pretty realistic, and Argla saying sort of the pixels. So I guess I've stated this in the past is I guess I'm more concerned with um, um, yeah, not being so slavish to realism and being more like if it looks better as a graphic representation than a realistic truism, then I'll stick with that. I'm beginning to wonder if that's exactly the thing it used to be. Let me give myself some arrows and see what happens. So let's make sure that it looks correct when it's, yeah, it looks all right. Okay, so I guess those are good enough. Looking at my changes, how much should I actually change it? I guess the rotation is the big thing. Again, because I want to have it more representative than realistic. A lot of times I'll rotate the plane to face the player more than it actually should, just so you can get a better view of it. Okay, so there we go. That looks fine. Let's just go ahead and commit those changes. Updating bow animation. Let's commit that. Let's go ahead and just fire that off into my PR. So that's kind of yeah, Dr. Kegel is noticing that it shoots from the mouth. Yeah, it shoots from the player position, which again, to make the crosshair work correctly, it's kind of a necessary thing. Otherwise, the crosshair would jump all over the place, and I don't think people would be familiar with that. Again, we're like a lot of the conventions we're kind of leaning into hard. So like we try to use pretty standard FPS controls, and we stick to the FPS convention. So yeah, if you notice, the arrow does come straight out of you. I think that's fine. Again, because That way the crosshair is useful. I've played around in Unity where that's not the case, and it's fun and it's certainly more realistic. But I just don't know if the players would actually like that because you want to be accurate with your shots, and uh, again I fall more on that side. Okay, so we've updated the bow animation. Um, Let me just throw out a different bow just to make sure it still looks okay. So let's throw out the old longbow. Um, see how that looks. This is the slowest one, which is fine. That's cool. And the short bow, which is the fastest one. Cool. Yeah, those. That feels good. It seems to. It looks nice, and it seems to because if you notice not only are we animating the plane, we're animating the texture on the plane, and that's controlled in code. So I wanted to make sure that the lerp animation and the frame animation are roughly hitting the right spots, and I think they are. I think if you notice on the longbow, um, you basically get to full draw right before you stop the lerp animation, which I think is good. I mean, I could fiddle with it to make it perfect, but I think as is, it's pretty darn good. Um, okay, so I think what else would I want to do with bows? Bows. We talked about potentially breaking out bows into their own texture sheet, and I think it might actually be useful to break out all the items into their own texture sheet. This is a conversation Chad and I will probably have in the future, but the folks that do modding, I'd be curious to get your thoughts on that. Obviously, it will break your stuff unless you've been, um, as we suggested, defining sprite sheets for your stuff. But I think it would allow flexibility for us to add simply more items much easier. Because right now, if you look at uh, the text sheet, let me fire up Photoshop, and we'll take a peek at that later. Uh, yeah, so if you look at this is our item texture sheet, which is one of those things that grew over time, and we didn't plan a lot. So like the first row is all potions, which is cool. And then we have a block of melee weapons, and we have some unused spots over here. And then we have wands. And then we have a row of armor. And then like the helmets are down the side here. And then the food is kind of just stuck in here. And then we have some like just random stuff. And I think it might make more sense to have the different items of each type live in their own sheet, just for organizational purposes. But I'm curious what the modders think about that. Okay. I think yeah. So yeah, again, here you can see the frame animation for the bow. Each they just have. Uh, so this first row here is it serves as the on ground image. It serves as the inventory image, and it is also the held image of the weapon. And then these the remaining frames are just the draw frames, and that's just something where I've just hand animated it as best I could. I think it works. It's um, again, I doubt my animation skills, but I think it works fine. And because it's also like moving and frame animation, it's harder to notice any little mistakes I've made. So Makilo's asking, are you planning to fill in the empty spots? Again, to touch on what I just said, the empty spots, because we weren't planning, the empty spots are just because we were doing weapons and we're like, let's do some weapons and wands, and that's cool. And they're like, oh, we should have armor, so let's just put that on its own row. And it kind of just happened without planning. Um, I think separate sheets are definitely the way to go, um, because for the bows, I actually extended the existing item sheet. The original item sheet didn't even have this row. So the original item sheet looked more like this, where there was no row, and this far most right row here was the old bow. Um, but I added I added four more rows so that I could have all the bows in one area to make them easy to work with. Um, And again, I would like to do a content bump before we hit our full 1.0 release. And I think adding separate sheets would be make them more manageable because it'd be nice to have again like because I worry about the whole variety issue because there are only like 3 or 4 stats for any given like weapon or armor. Like armor really only has 2 stats. It has the amount of protection it provides, and it has how much it slows you down, and that's it. There's only two numbers to play with, and right now we have I think we have 8 different sets of armor, which is a lot. So like basically you get this kind of sliding spectrum, which isn't as interesting, I don't think. But again, I know people like variety, so uh, it's kind of a toss up, right? There are some people who want the kitchen sink and they want like a dagger +1, a dagger +2, a dagger +3, a dagger +4, like add different item. And there are some folks that want a dagger +1, a dagger +4, a dagger +8. So that way the item differentiation actually makes a lot more sense. It's not like this kind of slow, like, this one's kind of better, so I'll take it, where you get this one and it's like, whoa, it's really good. I really, really want it. So AB 109-399-6300 says quite exquisite. Um, if I'm not quite sure what you're referring to, maybe the pixel art. If so, thank you. I try to do good pixel art. Um, so Dr. Hegel says he's not a modder, but during Devil, there should be 1 sprite atlas per item, and then an extra build step which combines it into a huge atlas. I think I can't speak for how it works behind the scenes. So AB 109-399-6300 is confirming, yeah. So thank you for the compliment on my pixel art. I appreciate that. I try to make it's my job and to make this game as beautiful as it possibly can, and I try hard. Um, and I think it looks pretty nice. Most items only have between 4 to 8 colors. Some have more, some have up to 12. But I try to. I mean, I'm not strictly. I'm not. I don't have a strict palette I work from. I think there are all told maybe less than 100 colors. Um, and I could really pare it down if I was being really stringent, but mostly it's just to help kind of rein myself in and give myself some constrictions to work within. Um, yeah, Dr. Kegel, I'm not sure if what the implementation side is, if they're all just like thrown into a giant atlas or not. Okay, let me see what to work on. So I think the archery stuff is in pretty good shape. So I committed that. So let's pop back over to the main branch of development. Um, so if you're not familiar with source control, we use a source control called Git, which is basically it allows us to for the code for the game, we pick points in time and we say save it like it is, and then like I'll make a change and I'll save that, so we can roll back to older versions if we need to, and we can see like what changes. Like I can look at a history, and I could say Chad's been working on upping the IS1 damage because he provided a comment, and they can look and see what he changed. Um, so Fix Archery lives in its own branch. So here's the visualization of what it looks like. So develop is the main branch we work out of, and then sometime in the past I split off Fix Archery from develop, and I made some independent changes. And then um, I am basically I'm proposing to take this split and then push it back into the develop branch. This is how we work. Um, a lot of software engineers use source control. It's a way for me to work without breaking Chad and without Chad breaking me. It's just a little bit of work when we actually merge the code back in to make sure that things don't. Usually Git works pretty well, but sometimes if we touch the same file, like if we both update like an item in the items definitions, I have to kind of like go through by hand to make sure that my changes are there and his changes are there. But for the most part, it works really well. So let's flip back up to the develop branch. And for most of the work in develop has actually been kind of juicing up the effects. So those are mostly the wand effects. So I'll touch on those real quick, and then we can kind of see where I need to go from there. Yeah, and if you notice, because this I switched to the develop branch and it doesn't know about the new properties of bows. I get this error because it doesn't know how to read the save file because the way that the bow is serialized. So that's why I start with a fresh save slot. 2man2 says off topic question: what are the dimensions of the items pixel wise? That's not off topic at all. Again, I encourage people to ask me all sorts of questions about the game, about game development, about art. So this definitely falls within art. Um, so all of the items are 32 by 32 pixels, and all of the majority of all the textures are 32 by 32. So if you think about the world in discrete units, um, a world unit is 32 pixels. And I guess that could be better illustrated in the editor. Let me pop over to that real quick and kind of so you can kind of visualize it and see what the editor actually looks like. And for those of you who have bought Delver, we do ship the editor with Delver. So wherever the Delver binary file lives, there is a delvedit.jar, which is a runnable Java jar file, and you can just run that and edit all the stuff like I do in Delver. So let me just open up. Let's open up the start area because I think somebody's asking me about the start area and how I created that. And this is a Java bug on Windows is when you hit file open or file save for the first time, the actual the dialog pops up behind the main application. And we've tried like all the different ways we can think of to fix it. Generally, you just say, the operating system will do the right thing and it will pop up. Or sometimes you can say, this has focus and that will do the right thing. And we've tried all of that and nothing has worked so far. So if any of you folks are Java experts and know what's going on, please let us know. But I'm just going to open up the start area. Yep. So this is the start area. You've seen me, kind of, poking around in, and so the world is just a discrete set of tiles. You can see the grid down below, and you can change the texture. So like the floor here, I can make it grass if I wanted. I can make it lava. Um, with these little handles, you can raise the floor, you can lower the floor. Um, you can, you can mess around with the different. I'm not sure why. Yeah, so they are kind of showing. So you can raise and lower the edges to make like that's how I made all these slanted pieces here on the sides. I can grab the handles and change it up and down. But if you notice, like everything does, all these units are 32 by 32, and then vertically too, um, they maintain the 32 by 32 for one world unit. Um, so cool. I want to get back into modding this game, and he needs to work on his pixel art. Yeah, no, yeah. Uh, so yeah, I would love to see like when people mod the game. Yeah, please feel free to ask me questions or share your work because I love to see what you folks do. And a lot of times, you guys surprise me. There's a modder called Tesla Coil, and he does crazy stuff, and I'm always excited to see what he's doing because um, I guess when you create systems, like you create them for a specific purpose, and a lot of times the modders will take those systems and just explore like how far they can be pushed, and that's cool. Um, and also, again, I love pixel art, and anybody who wants to get into that, I'm happy to talk your ear off about pixel art. And thank you. The editor, um, Chad has put a lot of love into the editor, and it works pretty well. I mean, there are quirks, of course, like I explained, firing it up, but it's pretty quick. You can go file, new. By default, Delver's the procedural tiles are 17 by 17, but you can also make areas that are just non-procedural, and you can make them handmade. Like the cold area, for example, is handmade. And they can be of any dimension. But yeah, let's just create a new 17 by 17, and then I can just start. Let me just set my. Let's make my ceiling. that, make my floor that, make my walls the wall tile. And I can really quickly just make a selection and start blocking in um, what I think my level ought to look like, and it's pretty quick to work with. So I mean, like getting the initial block out for the level is nice and quick, which is a really big time saver, because like if I want to have like this, like a thought of like this kind of I don't know, I'm just playing around with, like this is kind of a cool shape, and maybe this is like a hallway. So for like hallways or intersections, I need to make sure they touch the edges because that's how they actually work in game. And then, like maybe this goes down. Maybe it's this kind of cool um, like lower area. So I pull this down, and then I can kind of like say, okay, well, I need to lower this. Um, or actually, what I can do is, I can. This is my little favorite trick to kind of mess with people, but you do something like this and grab the edge and you pull out to make a ramp. And then what you can do is you can just flatten out the ramp to make stairs real quick. And again, because I've been using this engine for 3 years, or this editor for 3 years now, I'm pretty quick with it, so it's a pretty fast way to get a little level of stairs, and that's all nice and good. And maybe you want to add some variety in here. So I'm going to punch up the ceiling, actually, I'm going to punch up the ceiling height a little bit. Let's do that. And then, can I make the ceiling lava? Does that work? No, it doesn't. Yeah, lava only works as a floor texture. What you can do is this awkwardly colored yellow one, I believe, is sky, and that will show the skybox through, depending upon what you have it set at, and it'll also have the ambient light come through. So um, I should probably mark that in the texture sheet as like sky so folks know what it is. Um, Also, you can just drop in. So if you right click, you get this giant menu. So if I want to add, say, a mesh, I can add a pine tree. And boom, there it is. I can grab the pine tree, and I can hold shift, and that'll keep it on the XY plane. I can put some pine trees in my dungeon. I hold alt, I drag a copy. So I have a couple pine trees there now, which is, it is what it is. Hit P to play, drop instantly into play mode. I can look at stuff and say, oh, that's cool. And then I can go back out by hitting escape. You can place markers. Also, markers are the old way of doing things, but they still work. So you can place, like I can right click right here. Like let's go down here. Let's place some torches, right? So let's place right click, marker, torch. And then now when I hit play, the game will generate a torch and slap it on the wall right there, which is handy. It's also, you can place loot and monsters and other things using markers. I think you can also, if you want, you can also place them as entities as well. So like you can do entity lights, and you can place a torch that way. Again, this way allows you to have full control where it actually ends up, which is cool. And also, as if you place it as an entity, you have access to all the properties of the torch. And if I wanted to change the color, I can change the color. L, turn on lighting preview, so that's cool. So if I wanted to make it I don't know, more red, I can make it redder than the other one, because why not? I could change the range, so if I want to make it really bright, I can do that. I can play with some different, I can change the texture if I wanted to. I could make it, like I think if you look at sewer sprite, we have lanterns. Um, and then, now I have a lantern here instead of the, yeah. Um, it messed up on it's messing up on, so so 1 2 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. So the animation needs to be 8 and 9 here to make that flicker correctly. So a lot of these lights just have a 2-frame animation. They kind of jump back and forth between. Let me see. So we got some people talking. Since I'm showing off the editor, people are asking questions. So apparently our game is on the libgdx and introduction videos. That's cool. I know we've worked with those folks in the past. I think libgdx is an excellent framework, and it's done very well for us. Can the torch change color dynamically? No, it cannot. The torch is just whatever color you say it to be. And they're not actually they are static lights in that they are baked and that they well, I guess yeah. So the if you notice the model flickers, but the light does not flicker. We do have a dynamic light entity if that's what you want to play with. So over here, let me add a dynamic light. So right click, entity, lights, dynamic. And then here, what we can do is we can change the light type to, and we have various different types of flicker. So if we want like a pulsing light, like if you want like I don't know, this is kind of like this is more like a sci-fi thing, but yeah, you could have a cool pulsing light. And let me just throw some around here to get kind of this cool effect going. So now when you play, you have this. I don't know, it could be also useful for like some sort of like magical pool that has kind of emitting light, you know. Um, any number of uses. These are tools in the editor. And again, it's L to toggle um, the dynamic light. Okay, so I think I'm gonna. I have a 12:30 commitment, so I'm probably gonna end the stream here in about 5 minutes. So if there's anything you folks would like to see or any questions, um, uh, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I'll just tool around in the editor and make some weird stuff. Um, that seems like okay. People seem to be interested in the editor, so I will just play with that. Then we also have ladders. So entity, basic ladder. Some of these are kind of hard to find because there's a giant list of options. T will also flip an entity, also flips a tile. So if you hover over a tile, you can rotate it. That's how I do that, like that fancy effect with the grass. So um, if I make all of this grass, for example, and then like I make this dirt, and I want to do that cool like thing where um, a lot of uh, basically a lot of traditional tiling games have done this, where you have these nice little edges to go around. So corner, 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 corner. So at first this looks like garbage. It's totally not aligned correctly, but just by hovering see the white cursor. I'm not sure if you can see it on the stream or not. There's a white cursor showing what tile I've selected, and I can just hit T, and I can turn those to line those up and make it look like I want. Cool. So now when you drop into play, oh, I messed up. Drop into play mode, these look exactly like you left them, which is cool, which is the whole point. We also do support undo and redo, so Control Z. Let me see. So Lee Makes Things says, sorry if this has been asked already. Is this editor? Yeah, this editor is totally available for public use. Whenever you buy Delver, it lives in just right next to the binary for the game. So if I were to go to, let's launch my Steam library. And let's go to library. Let's go to wherever, Delver. And if we do properties, local files, browse local files, you have this, don't pay attention to that one, but this delve edit, you can launch that, and that is the editor for the game. And you can make your own custom levels, and you can muck around with kind of all kinds of stuff. I know a lot of modders, when they're doing texture packs, will launch the editor to make sure that things look correct in game. So Makila says, where can you create terrain type floors? So there's nothing special about the floors. So I'll just show you what I mean. Like outside and inside is only a matter of texturing. So let's just do this. Let's just make a big selection, and let's say the ceiling is the open sky, the floor is grass, and the walls are, so the lower wall is going to be stone, and the upper wall I think also should be sky. Let's carve that out. And then when I hit play, um, so that's not the correct, that's not the correct upper wall texture. Is it the blackness? Is that what it is? I forget which one it is, but yeah, one of these basically is a no draw. Let me just open up my start file and see what that looks like. So what I can do is I can select a tile over here on the edge, like on the very edge, and hit G, and it looks like, what are these? If I hit G here, yeah. So the upper wall and lower wall is, oh, okay. I see what it is. Okay. So file new. Okay, and then let's just go ahead and make the whole thing just like we have it there. So I'm going to do that, and then carve that, and then fill. So actually, what you can do is just go edit paint tiles, and this actually just sets the textures, even though they're not carved out. What's important is that um, the stuff next to them will show that texture, if that makes any sense. Maybe it'll make more sense when I actually show it. So let's just go ahead and go back to the thing we had earlier where we carved this out. And then now, because the neighboring tiles here, as their upper wall texture, they're no draw. You don't get any walls on that. And then what I did is I just need to grab this, then you say lower the floor, right? And then maybe lower the floor again. And then I just went in and I just kind of played around with like slope angles and heights, like you can make a selection here and pull that up and angle this down, angle that down, maybe angle all that down, which however you like. And then you kind of play around with this and eventually you get outside area. And again, there's nothing special about it other than just that you have to set those the boundary tiles to the upper and lower walls and ceiling to no draw. That's it. It is past 12:15, so I got to get going. Um, thank you all for hanging out. Again, I'm Joshua. You've been watching a Delver bonus development stream. So I stream every week on Sunday, tomorrow at noon. And whenever I can, I do a bonus stream. So that's what this is. This is a as I have time stream. So if you want to see me do more work, come back tomorrow at noon and I will keep on working. Thank you guys for asking good questions, and best luck on your endeavors if you do game development or if you just enjoy games. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate all of your time. See you tomorrow.